Alright guys, in today's video we will be doing a 2026 NFL mock draft version 1.0. This is the earliest I've done a mock draft on my channel relative to any draft in the past couple of years, so really excited to dive into this. Now, if you are not familiar with my content, maybe you're a new viewer, one thing that I want to highlight is I refer to generational as the G word, and I will be honest, there's a lot of good prospects in this class. Ruben Bain, of course, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, and then you probably have heard of the quarterbacks, whether it's Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, or Dante Moore. I don't think there is a generational talent in this class. I like Ruben Bain a lot, but I don't think he's on the level of Myles Garrett, Chase Young, Jadeveon Clowney, and I don't think he's a generational player. Caleb Downs is also a really good safety prospect. I don't think he's as good as Derwin James was back in 2018, and again, he's still a really good player, but in terms of the true generational, this guy looks to be a future multiple-time All-Pro, don't think we have one in this class, but there's still a lot of good players. So, and one other thing before we dive in is there will be no trades in today's mock. So I will point out where I think trades could apply and where I think teams would like to trade down, but for the sake of today's mock, there will be no trades. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. So the Tennessee Titans are up, and like we said, we will point out places where it makes sense to trade, and I think the best case scenario for the Tennessee Titans at this point pertaining to the rest of their 25 season is to lose out, finish with back-to-back number 1 overall picks, and have GM Mike Bergonzi have a chance at trading down and acquiring as much draft capital as the Titans can. I am wholeheartedly a firm believer that Cam Ward is the guy of the future there. Obviously, he's in a very bad situation right now. In this scenario, obviously, with the Jets, with all the first-round picks they have, the Raiders are going to be in a desperate situation because they are probably going to have their 4th head coach in 5 years at the start of the 26th season. The Browns also have an extra first-round pick because of the Jags trade last year, so they could go get Travis Hunter. So the Titans are in a really good situation if they finish with the number 1 pick. But right now, this is a team that I think would really benefit from drafting a guy like Ruben Bain. Ruben Bain is... He's a really tough and rugged pass rusher, and he's a guy that would instantly provide juice along this defensive line. And the fact that you could have Ruben Bain and Jeffrey Simmons get after the quarterback is extremely beneficial. And right now, you look at the Texans in that division with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, and obviously they play different positions than Jeffrey Simmons, but you see how much they are impacting the game week in and week out. That if the Titans can get that and hopefully have a second-year bump from Femi Oladejo, you could be working with something here in terms of building a legit pass rush in Nashville, and I still think there is a possibility they trade down a couple of spots and end up with either Ruben Bain or one of the top receivers in this class, which would of course help Cam Ward. For the Giants up here, again, if they finish with the number 2 pick, I do think Jackson Dart is their guy, so they too are a prime trade down candidate for what I would think would be a new GM. I mean, they fired Brian Daboll. I don't think they would bring back Joe Shane given the lack of results they've had over the past couple of years. 3 straight seasons starting out 2-7, and it's going to be 3 straight seasons of not making the playoffs. We'll see how that plays out, but for the sake of this mock, continue to add to the defense. Arvell Reese is a really, really good player, and we will toss this word around in today's mock and future mocks, but I think Arvell Reese is the definition of a good football player. He's probably going to be compared to Micah Parsons as a pre-draft prospect. I wouldn't expect him to have 5 12-sack seasons at the first 5 years of his career the way Micah had, but Micah was he was a linebacker coming out of Penn State, and then he played all over the field in 2021 with Dallas, and now he's primarily a pass rusher, but he is a freak, and so is Arvell Reese, and I do think he is kind of undeniably a top 5 talent in this class. Now, this is where I think the mock gets a little tricky with the New Orleans Saints, because right now, Tyler Shuck through the first couple of games of his career has played fine, and he's obviously in a very bad situation for himself to personally succeed in, and right now with how he's played, I don't think that you can look at any of the quarterbacks and say right now, hey, definitively, we need to give up on a player that we just invested a top 40 pick in, especially with the situation that's around Tyler Shuck, because the running backs and the receivers around him right now are not good, and I don't think that bringing in Fernando Mendoza or Ty Simpson or Dante Moore is magically going to fix this situation. So right now with the New Orleans Saints, I look at a player in Carnell Tate who I think compares kind of favorably to George Pickens, who is playing like a first-team All-Pro receiver right now, and a guy that's at least pertaining to the season, I would say top 5 at the position, and a good complement to somebody like Chris Olave, and who, what the Saints, I think, need to do is kind of raise the floor of the team. I really like Carnell Tate, and Jordan Tyson, there's some injury concerns. Mekhi Lemon's a really good receiver. I love all 3 of these players, but I do think Carnell Tate is, I mean, I don't think he's the 15th best player in this class, right? I know that's where the ranking has him, but I think he's a lot better than the 15th best player in this class, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's a top 8 pick come draft day. I think that would be a really good pick for the Saints, and that's also, depending how they feel about Tyler Shuck, obviously a good trade-out situation if they feel confident in him, because you never know with quarterback-needy teams, and you could have a team, or you could have quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3 if it comes hell or high water in April. So, with the New York Jets on the clock, this is a really good situation for them to be in with how this mock is played out. And they need a lot of help. You could definitely have them taking Jordan Tyson. You could definitely have them go Mekhi Lemon to upgrade the receiving room. But right now, they are in a position where they have 2 bookend tackles in Armand Membu at right tackle and Olu Fashanu at left tackle. And for a new quarterback to come in, because what we have to remember right now is the Jets also have a pick at the end of the first round, and this is a solid situation because they have a lot of draft capital. At least, and you look at the Jets right now, they have 4 picks inside the top 50. So where we're going to go with this selection is quarterback Fernando Mendoza. And I do want to preface this with, if the Jets took, a Peter Woods or a Caleb Downs, maybe not Caleb Downs at number 4 over all 3 quarterbacks, but if they wanted to simply upgrade or raise the floor of this team, I could absolutely see them doing that. But I also think you're in a situation where you have Drake May in your division, you have Josh Allen in your division. At some point, you have to take that quarterback in the first round. And I mean, obviously 2023 was a different situation because they had Aaron Rodgers, and then he tore his Achilles on, within the first couple of plays of the season. And then they ran it back with Aaron Rodgers, and then they had Justin Fields and Tyrod, but they're going to be in the first round quarterback conversation again very soon. If it's not this year, it will definitely be next year. But I do think the Jets right now are in a solid situation to be able to build around a young quarterback, and we'll see what they do at the end of the first round because they still have another pick in today's mock. Now, with the Raiders, this is a team that is in a, I would say, frustrating situation because you look at the Broncos and their defense. You look at the Chargers with Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. And I know the Chiefs lost on Thanksgiving to the Cowboys, but they're still the Kansas City Chiefs. They still have Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes isn't going anywhere. And at some point, instead of all of the guys they've trotted out over the past few years, whether it was towards the end of Derek Carr's career, whether it was Jimmy G, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, this year with Geno, at some point, you got to go after a quarterback in the first round. And like we said, I think there is a really good chance this team trades up. But I do think Dante Moore is a really cerebral player. And I thought that there was a point early in the year, or a couple of weeks ago even, where Dante Moore could have returned to Oregon. But I also think that there's a chance that Dante Moore receives a really high draft grade from the draft committee. And there's a chance that Dante Moore is going to be pretty much faced with the question of, hey, do you want to go in the top 10? I do think at worst Dante Moore would go in the top 10. Or do you want to return at Oregon and try and run it back and improve your stock? Only a couple of spots we've seen with quarterbacks like Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Aller in this cycle that it's a lot easier said than done to improve your draft stock. And there's also a scenario where if Dante Moore is a top 10 pick, that he's offered, or not offered, but would sign a contract north of $25 million. And if that's staring you in the face, I feel like that's a little hard to pass on. So Dante Moore going to the Raiders, I think, is a good fit. And it would also be John Spytek's quarterback, and it would presumably be with a new first-year head coach, because I don't think Pete Carroll is going to run it back, to say the least, or I don't think he's going to be brought back. Now, with the Cleveland Browns on the clock, this is also a team that has a lot of draft capital. 3 selections in the top 40, and they will be also selecting later in today's video. But with this team here, again, right now Shedeur Sanders is coming off of a win in his first career start against the Las Vegas Raiders. He was 11 for 20 in that game. My We'll be honest, I don't think Shedeur is going to be the long-term guy for the Browns. And right now, Ty Simpson is a player that I think has shown a really high level of mental and cerebral and processing at Alabama. And there's a case to be made that Ty Simpson could go back for another year. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he does go back for another year. But with where he is right now, with the flashes that he's shown throughout the 25 season, I do like Ty Simpson going to the Browns. And what I would say with Ty Simpson going to the Browns is there's still another pick in today's mock that could hypothetically help Ty Simpson out as he transitions to the NFL level. Now, with the Washington Commanders up here at pick 7, this is a team that, because they made a lot of trades last offseason, they have 2 selections in the top 100 and only 3 in the top 150. Their dream scenario is one of these quarterbacks that went 4, 5, and 6 in today's mock fall, and somebody comes up and tries to get them, whether that's the Cardinals, who very much look to be on the move from Kyler Murray this offseason, maybe even the Dolphins at 10, we'll see, and maybe even the Rams at 11, because Matt Stafford is, he's an older player. So there's a real scenario where the Commanders trade a couple of spots back. Maybe they get 11 and well, we're not going to do a scenario here, but there's a scenario where they do trade a couple of spots back and pick up a couple of more picks, because this is a team that, if anything that we can agree on, the Commanders desperately need depth within the roster, because that's something they don't have right now. But right now, in today's mock, I think an edge rusher would be really beneficial for this team. They really need a player to legitimately get after the quarterback. And when you look at this defense, to me, this is a roster that, defensively speaking, I don't think you look at this and say, man, I am absolutely terrified of X or Y player. And to me, David Bailey from Texas Tech is a really, really good pass rusher. He has over 60 pressures on the year. He's a guy that I like a lot coming out of Texas Tech, and I know there's probably going to be some people that bring up Tyree Wilson from a couple years ago. I think David Bailey is a better prospect from a floor standpoint than Tyree Wilson was coming out a couple of years ago, and Tyree Wilson's ceiling was always the lure to him as a prospect, but there's a lot of production from David Bailey. There's a lot of promise from David Bailey, and he is a guy that consistently gets home. And obviously in that division, with all of the quarterbacks that are in that division, and just generally speaking, you need to be able to get after the quarterback as a defense, not just because you play in the NFC East, but as a whole. That's how NFL teams win games a lot of the time, is playing good defense, getting after the quarterback. Floor-raising player, love David Bailey going to the Washington Commanders. Now, the Bengals are in a position where if they wanted to take an edge rusher, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I'm going to be honest, I don't think the value for the Bengals is great here at pick 8. At least when they can have a legitimate game-changing prospect fall into their laps in Ohio State's Caleb Downs. I think Caleb Downs is, to me, he's one of the top 5 or 6 players in this class, and he's a player that should be playing on Sundays for a long time. Love Caleb Downs' game. Floor raiser, he's a guy that should have, again, a long career at the NFL level. There's very few flaws within Caleb Downs' game, and I think this is a player that the Bengals are going to look at if he falls to pick 8 and say, hey, we can take a chance on an edge rusher, or we can take what should be pretty close to a sure thing at the safety position and secure one of the starting safeties of the future, and a guy that should be here for a very long time. Now, the Arizona Cardinals are up. This is a very tricky position for them to be in, because you can legitimately make a case and say, hey, Marvin Harrison Jr. has not been the player he was projected to be coming out of Ohio State. That would be completely fair to say that. And you could say, hey, Marv's obviously a bigger-bodied receiver, and so is Michael Wilson. So, when teams talk about building their receiving rooms, you kind of want to build it like a basketball team. You might have a guy that's sub 6 foot, maybe 2 guys sub 6 foot, and then you might want to have a couple of players that are 6'2", 6'3", and above that can play above the rim, right? So if you wanted to say, hey, let's just keep Jordan Tyson in state, let's draft him, I could get behind that. But there's also a part of this where I think the Cardinals need some help in the trenches. I don't think they're going to bring back Jonah Williams. And I will be honest, I think Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle from Utah, is a little better than 21, at least in terms of prospects. Spencer Fano, I don't think is a top 2 or 3 player in this class, and I will also acknowledge that this is not a great year to need offensive line help, but I don't think this is forcing a player at pick 9 just to force a player. I do think Fano will comfortably be upper first round selection, so is it a couple of spots early? Maybe 2 or 3, but Spencer Fano is a player that I like a lot, and with the Cardinals' uncertainty along their offensive line in the future, I think this is a player that makes a lot of sense. I think it's a good fit, and I really, I think that he could be a good tackle opposite of Paris Johnson for the next couple of years. And I do know that some Cardinals fans have been a little frustrated with Paris this year, but I like the idea of Paris and Fano over, like I said, the next couple of years. Now, the Miami Dolphins are up, 10th overall pick. Tyreek Hill had a major injury this year. You could certainly make a case for offensive line help. I know Jonas Savaiinaea has not had a great rookie season at all, but you just invested a second-round pick in him last year. There's no Quentin Nelson guard in this class to say, hey, we know this pick right now isn't looking great, but let's just go ahead and take a future All-Pro to replace him. If there was, that would make a lot of sense, but to me, Jordan Tyson is a really good prospect. He's a player that simply raises the floor of this team's receiving room, and outside of Jalen Waddle, I know they have Malik Washington, who was a day 3 pick in 2024. I liked Malik Washington, but I don't think Malik Washington's a legit wide receiver 2 at the NFL level, and I don't think by having Malik Washington in your receiving room that you're going to say, hey man, we probably shouldn't take him because of the potential of Malik Washington over Jordan Tyson. Jordan Tyson is a guy that if he goes for 1,000 yards as a rookie, I wouldn't be surprised. He's a really, really good football player, and that's a lot of what the Dolphins need, is simply good football players. Now, the Los Angeles Rams are up, and this is a team, I mean, they have the 11th pick in today's mock because they traded with the Falcons last year, and we mentioned earlier that they're a team that could trade up for somebody like Fernando Mendoza if they really wanted to, because the Rams are going to have the draft capital, because they not only pick at 11, they also pick at 31. So give 11, 31, and I'm going to be honest, I don't think it would take 3 ones, but if in this scenario it did, you could trade both your first this year and a first next year to secure your franchise quarterback in the future. But where we are going to go in today's mock is Rob Havenstein's getting up there in age for the Rams, and like I said, I do think it makes a lot of sense for the Rams to trade up, and I think they are a prime trade-up team, and Rob Havenstein is also hurt in the year, so they've been playing Warren McClendon. But where we are going to go with the Rams in today's mock is to address that offensive tackle position, because if the Rams have proven anything over the course of the past couple of years, it is the fact that whenever you address trenches, generally speaking, more often than not, those are going to be prioritized. And we saw that with the past couple of years with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and everybody else, and Kobe Turner and Byron Young. And instead of addressing the defensive side of the football, we are going to address the offensive side of the football and take offensive tackle Francis Maaga, the offensive tackle from Miami, and hope that he is the right tackle of the future. Though I do think if there's any team to trade up within the first 11 or 12 picks, the Rams make a tremendous amount of sense. Now, with the Minnesota Vikings up here at pick 12, this is a team that needs a lot of help right now. You can make a legitimate case for Jeremiah Love, though I do think Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason specifically have been fine this past year. I think they've been all right for what's been asked of them in the 2025 season. I would love Jeremiah Love as a Vikings fan. It would be a good fit. It would make the next quarterback's life a lot easier. Or, sorry, not the next quarterback, but it would make whoever quarterbacks for Minnesota in 2026 a lot easier. Boy, that one can get clipped. But where we are going to go with in today's mock is defensive lineman Peter Woods. This is a player that, look, Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, both getting up there in age. Not ideal contracts for either player, especially the Jonathan Allen contract. Peter Woods is a player that I think over the course of his rookie contract will prove to be a good player, and he's a guy that I like a lot, good pairing with the team need, and if Brian Flores is still the DC next year, then it could be similar to Byron Murphy out in Seattle with the trajectory over the first couple of years of his career. With the Dallas Cowboys up, this is a team that is slowly, they're getting right, if you will, at the right time. And with the Cowboys right now, I worry about the long-term outlook at the corner position. You can never have enough corner depth, and I think Mansour Delane is a really good player. He is my personal CB1. I love Mansour Delane. Think he does both here. He upgrades the corner, or he does a couple of things. He upgrades the corner room, he raises the floor of this team, and he's a player that has a really high ceiling. So, love Mansour Delane going to the Cowboys at number 13 overall. Now, with the Carolina Panthers up, we'll see about the future of Bryce Young, because he'll have the game that he had a couple of weeks ago against the Falcons, and then he'll have another game where he finishes 13 of 22 for 137 yards and an interception. And I don't think there's going to be a quarterback at number 14 that you can justify to take to be the next guy. So what we are going to do with the Carolina Panthers here is we're going to give Tetairoa McMillan we're going to give a good compliment to Tetairoa McMillan, and that to me is Mekhi Lemon. You can see Mekhi Lemon is 5'11", 195. I'm not a fan of always, let's just comp guys that played at the same school, but I do think there are similarities within Mekhi Lemon's game and Amon-Ra St. Brown's game, who, of course, also went to USC. They're both really good at the catch point. They have really strong hands, and they're both really good route runners for their size. And I like Mekhi Lemon a lot. To me, another high-floor player, and I think that's where the Panthers need to go at this point. I loved the Carolina Panthers 2025 draft with Tetairoa McMillan, Nick Scorton, Princely Umanmielen. Thought they hit it out of the park with that draft. Mekhi Lemon would be the start to that for them in 2026. Now, with the Chiefs up, this is an interesting spot. The Chiefs are in a bit of a predicament right now. They're going through some things. They lost to the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, and with where they are, I'm going to be honest, I watching this team play, I'm a little frustrated for Chiefs fans week in and week out to deal with Kareem Hunt at 30 years old and Isaiah Pacheco, and think that they have the opportunity to really hit a home run here at the running back position in the draft. I have said multiple times that I would have preferred the Chiefs to trade for Breece Hall at the deadline, but Jeremiah Love is a really, really good running back prospect from Notre Dame, and at some point I feel like you have to do everything you can to help out Patrick Mahomes from a talent standpoint on the offense, because I don't think this receiving core is all that great. I don't know how many people actually do, and if you could turn around, hand the ball off, and actually, by the way, get under center and then hand the ball off, get a couple, 4, 5, 6 yards a pop with Jeremiah Love, which you can, do everything you can to make your quarterback's life easier. And I like Jeremiah Love a lot. To me, this is a dream fit. This would be one of the best fits in the 2026 draft. The opportunity is there for the Chiefs to have their running back for the next couple of years, and if the opportunity presents itself, I feel like the Chiefs have to capitalize if the opportunity is there to draft Jeremiah Love. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are up. This is a team where I'm going to be honest, I kind of struggled where to go here, because I think you can make a case for a lot of positions, but to me, they have a lot of question marks at the receiver position, and I know they traded for DK Metcalf. They gave him, a huge $130 million contract extension. But just because you have DK Metcalf, to me, shouldn't prevent you from taking a really good player in Denzel Boston. Denzel Boston is strong at the attack point. Now, Denzel Boston is also, he's also a very big receiver. He's 6'4", 210 pounds. There's going to be a lot of comps, I would probably say, to Keon Coleman in the draft process this year. But to me, Denzel Boston, I would say, is closer to Rome Odunze than he is to Keon Coleman, another big-bodied receiver. And I know, ironically, I just talked about the not comparing to former schools with Mekhi Lemon and Amon-Ra. But I do like Denzel Boston to Rome Odunze. I think they're both really strong at the catch point. They're both kind of underrated route runners for the way that they win. And I would say that Rome Odunze, like Denzel Boston, is certainly not the fastest guy off the line of scrimmage, but just because you're not Tyreek Hill coming out of the gates doesn't mean you can't win and can't be a successful NFL player. And by the way, if you want a comparison for a player that is not their school, I think Jeremiah Love compares similarly to Ezekiel Elliott out of Ohio State, and I also think Jordan Tyson compares, honestly, a little bit to Justin Jefferson, which is clearly not an Arizona State guy. So just don't want to, say every player that comes out is a comp to their former school. So with the Houston Texans up, would love for them to draft Jeremiah Love. Unfortunately, he's not here. Now, as we discuss the 2026 draft, and as we get more into this over the next couple of months, the 2026 running back class is not great. I wouldn't be surprised if there's one running back taken in the first 2 rounds. This is not the year to need a running back, at least in the draft. Last year was a much better class. Cam Scadaboo was drafted on day 3 for reference. Probably shouldn't have been if we're being honest, but he was drafted on day 3. So was Bajal Tootin. Love both of those guys. And I don't think that this class is, you can see the rankings, not that this is a definitive list, but you can see very quickly that there's a big discrepancy between Jeremiah Love and everybody else. Now, I do like Jadarian Price, his backup running back, quite a bit. I think he will be a player that will be successful in the NFL for a couple of years, but not a great class. I also really like Katron Allen from Penn State. Do not like them at 17 overall, but a player that I do like at 17 overall is actually Katron Allen's teammate, and that is Vavega Yone, the guard from Penn State. This is a player that, to me, is everything the Texans should want in a guard at this point. He's a floor-raising player. He is a guy that is tough and nasty in the trenches, and a player that will certainly highlight a lot throughout the pre-draft process. And look, he's a guy that is what CJ Stroud is going to want over the course of the next couple of years. A guy to keep the middle of the pocket clean and also pave ways in the run game. And I do think at this point he's a little bit of an underrated player, but I like Vavega a lot as a prospect. Now, the Detroit Lions are up. They're coming off a tough loss to the Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving. And within that game, we don't say this often, but Aiden Hutchinson did not have a good game. And with the Lions, as tough as they are in the trenches, and they also did have Frank Ragnow announce that he was coming back. I mean, he already retired once, so I don't think that should be a long-term solution, or at least viewed as a long-term solution. But I really like the idea of them drafting Keldrick Falk to legitimately have a Robin to Aiden Hutchinson's Batman, because I feel like at times within the Lions pass rush, at times that it's basically, hey, it's Aiden Hutchinson and everybody else. And I feel like in some ways that it's kind of like Calvin Johnson was for most of his days in Detroit, where he is the guy getting after the quarterback, or Calvin Johnson is the guy getting passes thrown to. And I know they had other players like Brandon Pettigrew, and Golden Tate eventually came in. But right now it feels like Hutch and everybody else. Keldrick Falk helps with that. I think that would be really good value for the Lions at pick 18, and it's a position that you can never have enough depth of, and I like Keldrick Falk a lot going to the Lions. Jermon McCoy, the corner from Tennessee, is also another selection that I would have liked there, but I didn't take him because of injury concerns. And then Terrion Arnold's and the corner they drafted last year, Ennis Rakestraw, in the second round, has also had some injury concerns, so I didn't want to take another corner with injury concerns at 18 overall when Keldrick Falk was there. Now, the Baltimore Ravens are up. I'm going to be honest, guys. There's going to be conversations this offseason about the future of Nnamdi Madubuike. And you guys know that I'm from Maryland, so inevitably I hear a lot about the Ravens more than I do other teams, and I would like to say I'm pretty dialed in with the Ravens. And I think there's a very real chance that Nnamdi Madubuike is on the last legs of his NFL career. I hope I'm wrong about that. But neck injuries are not one to mess with. It's not a it's not just, hey, his leg snapped the other direction and let's just get surgery and he'll be back. Neck injuries are extremely abnormal, and there's no real playbook for how this is going to play out. But I think there's going to be a part of the Ravens organization that is really, like, they're going to try to plan for the days in what could be post Nnamdi Madubuike, or they're going to maybe prepare like he's not going to be there long term because of a neck injury. So within this, we're going to draft Caleb Banks, the defensive lineman from Florida. He's a big boy. He's 330 pounds. He's not the same playing style as Nnamdi Madubuike, of course, but the goal of that selection is to raise the floor of the interior defensive line and to also have another good football player in the team, which the Ravens generally do a good job of in the draft process every year. And that's going to be the goal of that selection, is what could be a preparation for something that could happen this offseason. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are up. This is a team, to me, they could see some change at the head coaching position this offseason, if we're being completely honest. Would not be surprised at all if Todd Bowles' days are numbered in Tampa. But where we are going to go with this pick, we're going to address the pass rush. They brought in Hassan Reddick this offseason. They let JTS, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, go. He was a former first-round pick. This is a team that, because of the success they've had over the past couple of years, whether it was Baker, whether it was Bucky Irving, and everybody going crazy with Bucky Irving being a fan of him, or Emeka Egbuka, or Antoine Winfield, or everybody else that they've had over the past couple of years, I feel like the pass rush is, and specifically the pass rush at the edge position, has kind of gone under the radar that the Bucs need help at that position. And there was a reason last year that Hassan Reddick was one of the very first free agents signed out of anybody, and it was because the Bucs know they need help at the position. Cassius Howe, a pass rusher from Texas A&M, makes a lot of sense. Now, the Bills are kind of also in the same position from a pass rush standpoint. They need help. They also need help at the receiver position, but I'm going to be honest, I don't think the receivers, at least that are in front of them right now, make sense over somebody like TJ Parker from Clemson. I'm going to be honest, there's also a chance that Buffalo has some changes made this offseason, both at GM and at head coach. We'll see how that plays out, but Buffalo needs as much help as they can get right now. Not as much help, but they need a better roster. They need a floor-raising roster. Their second and third round picks last year, TJ Sanders and Landon Jackson, have not worked out the way they would have liked so far. I mean, things can turn around, but TJ Parker, to me, with Buffalo, makes a lot of sense because he fills a need and he raises the floor of the team. Now, with Cleveland at 22, we are getting to the point where we have a couple of teams that are selecting twice. They already took Ty Simpson. Cleveland could certainly use a receiver here, but the good thing with the Browns is they also have pick 38, which could also be used on a receiver. And Caden Proctor is, right now, he's actually Ty Simpson's teammate at Alabama. He had a really tough start to the year, but this is a player that I think could kick inside. He's 6'7", 360. He's a player that feet are a little slow. They get a little stuck in cement at times, but when he gets going and when he gets that anchor churning, if you will, he's a really good player. And wouldn't be surprised at all to see them try and replace Joel Bitonio, who is 34 years old. He's not going to play forever. And there's a lot of people that think this is Joel Bitonio's final year. And Caden Proctor, floor raiser. It's a player the Browns, or a type of player the Browns need. Makes a lot of sense, and it also helps keep your quarterback clean. And the Browns also have the 38th pick to address the receiver position as well. Now, with the San Francisco 49ers, this is a tough one here. This is actually a really tough one because I think you can go in a lot of directions with this team. The 49ers, obviously, they go through it every year, it seems, and it is unfortunate that they have injuries every single year. But where we are going to go in today's mock is we are actually going to take an offensive tackle, and we are going to go with Caleb Lomu, the talented offensive lineman from Utah. And I think Caleb will be better than the 42nd player in this class. And a lot of the times in the pre-draft process, you'll hear that a guy could kick inside, kind of like how we said with Caden Proctor. But I think Lomu has a legit chance to be a right tackle in the future, and I really like the projection of his game as he goes from Utah to the NFL level. And this is a player that, if we're talking about getting set up for success, he's going to probably go up against Nick Bosa every day in training camp. I really like Caleb Lomu's ceiling as he goes to the NFL level. And out of the tackles in this class, I think he's a little more on the raw side at the moment, but I think he has one of the top 2 or 3 highest ceilings in this class out of any offensive tackle. And he's a guy that I think the 49ers would like as well because he's also a really good athlete. Now, with the Cowboys up at pick 24, their first selection was Mansour Delane. And the Cowboys right now, I mean, guys, they're a really, really solid football team. And right now, I would really like for them to take Sonny Styles with their second first-round pick. Sonny Styles he's a floor-raising linebacker. He's a guy that you can count on. And if you walk out of the first round with Mansour Delane and Sonny Styles, you know, you're attacking different levels of the defense. You're getting better, or you should get better production from those players than what you've received for a lot of the 25 season. And that's a really solid draft for the Dallas Cowboys. And one thing that we have talked about before with the Cowboys is they generally do a lot of things right. It's unfortunate that a lot of the things, you know, like Jerry saying stuff in the media and all the things that Jerry does gets overshadowed by the right things they do. Look at trading for George Pickens. Look at getting Donovan Ezaraku in the second round. And you can go on. I mean, having CeeDee Lamb fall to your lap in 2020 and Tyler Smith fall into your lap in 2022 and taking good football players when they're there. Sonny Styles is that player to me. Now, the Chargers are up. This is a position that this is a team that I struggled where we should go with in this mock. But ultimately, the player that we are going to go with is Cade McDonald. The Chargers have struggled to stop the run for a lot of 2025, and they selected Jamari Caldwell in the third round last year, a big nose tackle from Oregon. I'll be honest, he's been really underwhelming. That, to me right now, is looking like one of my misses from the 2025 draft. I thought he was going to be kind of a fire hydrant in the middle of the defense, and I do love specific role players like that can take up a gap that you have to legitimately game plan, or not game plan, but you don't want to run right at him because he's going to be sitting right there in the middle of the defense, and he hasn't been that player. But Cade McDonald is a player that I think is already better than Jamari Caldwell, and I think that his projection is a lot higher than what Jamari Caldwell's is at this point, and it's never bad to be able to have a guy that you can play in the middle of your defense to stop the run, especially if the value aligns, and that's where I think the Chargers would go. Now, I'm going to be honest, the same concept kind of applies with the Bears here at pick 26, and Amari Washington is a big 330-pound defensive lineman from Oregon. He's a guy that I also really like quite a bit, and the Bears have also had some trouble stopping the run this year. There is a chance, I'm recording this before the Bears-Eagles game, after the Thanksgiving, so Friday morning, but after the Thanksgiving Day games, prior to the Black Friday game, there's a chance the Eagles have a good run day against the Bears that can make this selection look really, really good as this mock releases Saturday morning. We'll see on that part. But Amari Washington, he's a player that I think Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles are going to love. He's just a big mauler in the middle of the defense, and he's a player that I like quite a bit. And him and Caden McDonald are two of the best interior defensive linemen in this class. Love both players' projections to the NFL, and I think he would be a really good fit in the Windy City. Now, the Seattle Seahawks are up. This is a team that could certainly go interior offensive line with this pick, but a player that I think that they would be willing to take a chance on, especially with the uncertainty of Reek Woolen and his future in the Emerald City, is another corner in Jermod McCoy. Jermod McCoy, Devin Witherspoon. You'd be looking at two good corners in that defense, and or like pertaining to their playing style. And then you'd have Mike McDonald still unleashing Nicky Manwari however he wants to. This team is really good already. Jermod McCoy would certainly help with this defense even more. And I don't want to say that this would be the Legion of Boom, 10 years later, because, there were two Hall of Fame, or at least two players that I think should be in the Hall of Fame, in Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas. And Cam Chancellor certainly played at a Hall of Fame level for a short period. I don't think the longevity will be there for Cam, but Jermod McCoy is a really good player, guys, when healthy. And I think the Seahawks are in a position where they can take a chance on a player like Jermod McCoy to see if he works out. And obviously, NFL teams are going to have a lot more with the injury and the medical than I will, obviously, as a draft analyst. But He's a player that I think the Seahawks would go after, and with Reek Woolen pending leaving in free agency, I think Jermon McCoy makes a lot of sense for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the New York Jets are back up, and the Jets are, as we know earlier, they took Fernando Mendoza, and earlier we did toy with the fact, or we did mention that, the Jets are in a position where they can take a player to help out their young quarterback. And that player that we're going to draft here is Chris Bell from Louisville. I really like Chris Bell. He's a player that should make a quarterback's life a lot easier. He's a guy that, you throw on slants and drags and screens, and in some ways be a good complement, or in a lot of ways rather, be a good complement to Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's a really good route runner. He's a guy that is he's a high floor player in himself, but Chris Bell to me is a guy that I like a lot. And when you would pair Mendoza with Chris Bell, I like the idea of this quite a bit, and the Jets are in a position to really lay the foundation over the course of the next couple of years. And Chris Bell is a player that, Garrett Wilson's obviously not a big guy. Chris Bell is 6'2", 220. There's a couple of clips of Chris Bell running on touchdowns this year. This is not my player comp for him, because he wouldn't go at the end of the first round if this was my player comp. But if you've seen the highlights of Chris Bell running with the football in his hands, there's times where it legitimately looks like Julio Jones. That's obviously not my comp. I'm just saying when he has the football in his hands, that's the type of anger and aggression he runs with. Just get Chris Bell the football. Like the pairing, like the fit. Fernando Mendoza, Chris Bell, Garrett Wilson, both bookend tackles. You can see the foundation and the future of the vision of this team. Philadelphia Eagles are up, and they've had a lot of trouble this year with, they've ran Avonte Maddox back. That hasn't been great. Adoree Jackson hasn't been great. Avion Terrell, if that name sounds familiar, that is A.J. Terrell's younger brother. Makes a lot of sense. Both players went to Clemson, and A.J. has been really good for the Falcons more often than not. Not that your brother being good makes that you're going to be automatically good, but it's a huge need for Philly. And Avion Terrell opposite of Quinyon Mitchell, and then you have Cooper DeJean back there. You're looking at a really good young secondary, along with the idea that you may still extend Jalen Phillips. You have Nolan Smith, you have Jalen Carter. It's a really good defense for the Birds, and there's a reason that they are, one of the best teams in the NFL year in and year out. Now, the Denver Broncos are up. Evan Ingram certainly has not been a player that they envisioned whenever they paid him this offseason. And Kenyon Sadiq is a player that I think is a high floor guy at the tight end position. I think there's, like how we discussed with the running back class, I think there's a bit of a gap between Kenyon Sadiq and the rest of the class. I do really like Michael Trigg from Baylor. I think he'll go earlier than the middle of the third round. But there is a big gap between Kenyon Sadiq and the second tight end. And I think that Sean Payton, with the prioritization that we've seen with tight ends over his coaching career, not just with the Broncos, but of course back in New Orleans, I think it's a player that he would really love. All right, the Rams are back on the clock. They took Francis Maiaga with their first pick, a big offensive tackle from Miami. And with where the Rams are as a team, this is kind of a difficult spot to pick for them. But a position that I wanted to address for the Rams is corner, because you're one play away from your best corner going down. You can never have enough corner depth, especially in that division. So Colton Hood's a player that I like for the Rams a lot. And that's ultimately the player that we go with or for the Rams' second first-round pick. So they walk out of the first round with Francis Maiaga, a tackle from Miami, and Colton Hood, a corner from Tennessee. Now, the New England Patriots are up. Wouldn't mind to continue to address the offensive line, especially with Morgan Moses being an older offensive tackle and the fact that he's not going to play forever. But the Patriots receivers, Stephon Diggs is also getting up there in age, and he's not going to play forever. And sometimes it's good to draft a position a year ahead rather than a year late. That's why we're going to go with Casey Concepcion, the receiver from Texas A&M for the Patriots, for the Patriots' first-round pick in today's mock. And by the way, with how this played out here at the end of the first round, this is how the mock was, not necessarily my playoff predictions. Just want to get that specific part out of the way. But you can see today's mock, and I'd be eager to hear your guys' thoughts on today's mock down in the comment section below. So if you are still watching, I greatly appreciate the time out of your day, and if you are still watching, please like the video. A football will appear when you do like the video, and it helps with the channel tremendously and the almighty YouTube algorithm. So, as always, until next time, hope you enjoyed. Please be safe. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and have a great day. Love you guys.